All right, cool. Let's get into it. All right, great morning, business owners and managers, and welcome to another awesome episode of CX in the Morning, Customer Experience in the Morning. I am your host, Wes Walters, and thank you for being here. On every single episode of CX in the Morning, I bless you with customer service tips, customer experience tricks, and I leave you with gems. And by gems, I mean actionable takeaways that you can implement at the speed of now. You will learn the importance of implementing an awesome customer experience and how that affects the bottom line. Immediately after this broadcast, you can take what you've learned and share it with your team, making you, your team, and your business better. So today we have an awesome guest, Miss Toussaint, Miss Raquel. Raquel, how are you? Can you hear me? Is everything fine on your end, Miss Raquel?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. All right. Icy Sunday. We have a special guest. So we need to either go to YouTube at Wes Walters, Twitter, Periscope at Wes Walters, or Wes Walters and Associates on Facebook if you want to see the conversation. All right. So first of all, great morning, Miss Raquel.
Good morning. How are you?
I am fantastic. First of all, thank you for being here so early in the morning. I know you have a lot of things you could be doing, especially homeschooling with the kiddies, but you choose to share some gems with the tribe. And before we begin, I think this is always important because, we live in a time where everyone is an expert. Everyone is a guru on social media. And it's important to the viewers before they begin to know that you are not just someone who was pumping gas at a gas station last night. You have experience, and please share with them what you do, how long you've been doing it, and why they should listen.
All righty. So I agree with you. Everyone is, trying to pitch that they're expert in everything now. But for me, I like to stick to my niche and what I've been doing. So for the last, I say over 10 years, every time I introduce myself, but it's been, about 15 years I've been working in the HR field. Anything human resources, a generalist. I started out, as an assistant and kind of growing my way to a corporate HR manager. And I work for a multi-state healthcare company, pediatric healthcare company, one of the largest. And I manage a team of 5 HR professionals. And the company base, employee base is about 32,000 employees that we support. So anything from employee relations, HR policy management, employment law, performance reviews, the onboarding process, and so forth. But like I said, I've been doing this for maybe about 15 years right out of college. And right now working in corporate America, but I've worked for small and large corporations. So definitely looking forward to talking about those differences and how they affect the employee experience as well.
Did you say 3,200 employees?
32,000.
32,000.
32,000 caregivers.
Yes,
caregivers, nurses, our frontline workers right now, our nurses and our therapists and our aides out there right now.
Well, awesome. I always like to refer to HR as the gatekeeper's gatekeeper, because you guys are the ones that, either let the person in or let them out. So your level of discernment is paramount to a business's success. Now, a lot of businesses are going to start hiring a lot of employees for this winter season that's coming up. Now, what are some of the red flags that a novice manager might not see or might not know, but someone as seasoned as yourself who's been doing it for 10 years or above 10 years, over a decade, what are some of those red flags that you as a seasoned HR professional might spot that a novice manager or business owner might not?
All right. Well, the first thing I'll say is always use your resources, right, in your HR people and in your recruiters, especially if you're working for a larger organization, you'll have recruiters. But some of the red flags, I would say, just thinking about before the employee starts, but there are red flags even after they start. But before the employee starts, even in the interview, one thing I would say is timeliness. That's the first thing, right? If they're late to the interview, that's a first red flag. And everyone, has the possibility of running late for an interview, but it's all about how they handle it. You know, if they're calling and letting you know, okay, I'm running late, you know, when they come, they apologize and they really have a good excuse, that's something different. But if they're late for the interview, if they're late to get on the phone screening with you, that's a first red flag. Also, just looking at the pre-hire state, references. Every manager and every recruiter should check references, at least two is a minimum. And I know there are some companies now that say, well, we can only give you dates of employment and job title or whatever. But it's always good to even ask for more references and take the time, even if it's 20 minutes, just really talking to the references and asking them situational questions, you know, asking them, you know, what is the first thing that comes to their mind when they think of this employee. But in that conversation, you might pick up some red flags as well. You know, you kind of have to listen for some cues, because most companies won't give a bad reference just due to, you know, them putting out a certain reputation about the employee. But you just have to listen to some cues that they might say, well, this person was just okay, or things like that. So references, timeliness, and also when they actually arrive to the interview, you have to watch for negativity, right? I always say in an interview, the employee should never be bad mouthing their former employer, right? Yeah, so they might have had a bad experience, and I've had a bad experience with former employers, but there's a way to tell your story, right? Without using the whole interview time to just talk about your last manager and how horrible they were, and the company had no values, and that's the reason I'm leaving, and they did things complicated. You know, that's a red flag to me in the interview. If they're not focusing on themselves and all they're focusing on is negative things about their former company, that's a big red flag at the beginning. So, you know, I can definitely talk about red flags after you hire them, but I won't take it away yet. Hopefully I'm not, you know, giving too much right now.
No. That's beautiful. Now, let me ask you this: for a small business that's on the come up, what are some of the things that should be included in the onboarding process?
Well, the onboarding process, you know, I feel like it needs to be personalized to the role. So for a small business, you might not have an HR person, right? You might just be the manager, the HR person, everything, right? But I think it's important, and even if you research online, onboarding checklists, there's a ton of free resources out there that will spell out, okay, you need to have a plan before the employee starts. So every employee should have a schedule, at least for their first week, on every hour and who they will be meeting with and what they will be doing. When, you know, before they start, you want to have some type of contact with the employee. It really sets the stage, right? To let them know that you're excited that they're here, because you want them to be excited, right? If you want your employee to get started and you want them to exhibit great customer service skills and all of that, they have to know that you are passionate about the company and passionate about professionalism. So contacting them beforehand and sending them whatever package you have via email, maybe that tells a little bit of reading before they get there would be great. And then on the first day, you want to make sure that, of course, they're greeted. Social interaction is great. So when I say social interaction, I'm talking about going around and meeting the team in person. Of course, with COVID-19, that might not be possible, right? But so if you are virtually, one thing that we've done at the company is we've done virtual meet and greets, you know, where we set up time so that they can at least have 20 minutes with folks that are, you know, potential stakeholders in their job. So if it's a customer service representative, you know, you would want them to meet other coworkers, other department managers during their first day. But I always tell managers, don't overwhelm them during the first day. It's a lot to take in. You know, I don't know if you remember when you started a new job, that day when you go home, you are super tired. Like, it's just information overload. You don't want to overload them, but I would say during the first morning, from, let's just say they start from 9 to 12 on their first day, we always make sure that they have an introduction to the company, the history, even though they've probably prepared and they've read, they want to hear it from you. They want to hear the company's history, the culture, the mission statement, our values, simple things like why the company is called whatever name it's called, maybe the meaning behind the name. We do that at our company. Why did we call, our company so-and-so? And they go through about an hour presentation, and we put it on PowerPoint, have it very professional. And then it's always good to have them meet someone of importance at the company, right? So not all the time you can get the owner to be there for every hire, but even if it's a director or someone at a operations manager level to come in and greet them, again, to let them know that we are serious and we are happy that they're here and we're investing in them from the top. I think that's important on the first day. Again, going back to social interaction, either bringing in lunch or taking them somewhere to lunch and really just having small talk and talking with them about expectations. I had HR vice president that I worked under. She did a really good job at onboarding. And from a manager's perspective, for every person that started on the HR team, she had introduction to us of her expectations of the type of service that we need to give to the field. She had her principles really that were in line with the company, but again, her expectations as a manager. And she had a mantra. She had a whole presentation ready for us. So I would say planning the day, planning the week, even the first 2 weeks, hour by hour, and give them some time to get settled, right? If they have a desk, give them some time to get their email together, to breathe a little bit, right? Just for the first day or the first week. Give them some time to sit down and read the policies. A lot of the times, business owners or managers, they just want to, let's train, but they forget that the employee just needs some time to digest, right? Everything about the company, about the operations. So you want to train, give them time to digest, then train again. Just kind of do that in alternating patterns so that they have time to really digest and so that they're not so overwhelmed, right?
Understood.
Yeah.
Great. As you were speaking, what jumped out to me is a lot of things. Is one thing that I see a lot of businesses and managers fail to recognize is that it's not so much that it's the new hires first day and they need to impress you, but also the business is kind of on probation as well, because this new hire might say, after the first 5 days, I realize this culture does not resonate with what I stand for and I want to be out. So that's a good for both. But yes, as well, I've seen many times where a new hire starts and their email is not set up, or their workstation is not set up, or their card is not working. So on the first day, the first impression that this employee has is that, okay, obviously, one, they don't value me. And if this is how they treat the internal customer, imagine how they treat the external customer. And you can't expect me to be, go out there and deliver world-class service when on my first day, when you knew I accepted the job a month ago, that my workstation is not even set up.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up. That's a big thing. I remember there was a time that I started a position and there was not even a seat for me. Like, I was standing from 9 a.m. to 9:30 while everybody shuffled, right? And they were expecting me. I mean, and it was just, I didn't really hold it against them because, it was HR people that messed up. So I'm like, oh, my own people messed up. But yeah, I was standing for 30 minutes and they were shuffling. And I was just like, you are not serious about me starting. So I think, like you said, having email set up, having a seat for them. We do this for our corporate office, right? So when we have a new person starting on the team, we even go as far as we have company greeting cards with our logo and everything on it. The team goes around, they sign it personally and say, welcome to the team. And we're doing this like a week or two before the person starts. So so we have a greeting card and then we place it on their desk. We have an assistant that reaches out to the employee and gets just a basic supply list from them to ask them what type of supplies that they need, but they'll still order supplies when they start. But at least they have some pens, they have things on their desk, things that are be personalized to them. Email needs to be set up, like you said. They need to have at least a badge or a temporary badge if your company does that. And like I said, everybody needs to know somebody new is starting, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to take my advice and introduce them to everybody, and everyone's like, oh, like I didn't know we had someone new. Like everyone needs to know, like, oh, we're excited that you're starting, but that's part of the card signing process, so that the whole team is aware that we have someone starting on this day, so that they'll be ready for their welcome. But like you said, if you're not prepared, they are not going to take you seriously, the customer seriously, and just their job seriously if you didn't take them seriously.
Now, the average cost of across all industries for the onboarding process is about $4,125. What are the long-term effects, even after the $4,000, of hiring the wrong employee? What does that do to the company culture, employee morale? What are the long-term effects of that?
We've had I've seen a lot of that over my years, and even recently, because that's something that sometimes you just can't get 100% perfect. But when we talk about long-term effects, we're talking about, as you say, the $4,000, but then that just keeps going up, right? Yeah. That increases over the time if you keep them there. And then also employee morale is the biggest thing too. You have good performers at your company and you made the wrong hire, and they see that you're bringing in someone that's underperforming, especially if you didn't offer them the job or you didn't post a job internally, they'll feel devalued. So the whole employee morale with the employees that are currently there. And then the whole customer experience, right? So at our company, we don't have, I would say, front facing, we would call them customers, but our caregivers really are folks, right? If you were to relate it to a service business, our caregivers are folks and our patients are customers, right? So if we don't hire the right nurse and we hire a nurse that's negative and that was a bad hire, it affects the patient experience. And a lot of companies, I don't know one service organization that doesn't thrive off of referrals, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to affect your referrals. It's just going to affect how the general public views you as a company. I feel like it's so important to get it right at the beginning, before the hire. But you know what? Things happen, right? But I would say, even if you do hire someone and you're kind of having doubts, the quicker you act, the better, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why most companies have that probationary period or whatever. But the quicker you can correct the problem, the better. But the long-term effects, just the bad morale is number one, bad customer service, and the extraordinary costs of the person. And when we talk about costs, we say that a lot. And a lot of people maybe that are listening probably don't know, right? Okay, Wes, what's included in that 4,000, right? What is that? So that's the cost of you as an owner. Take your salary and how you had to use the time. And if you have an HR person or a recruiter, look at their salary and the amount of hours it takes to sift through resumes, to interview folks, and then the time or the resources that you're taking to train. Training takes hours over months, right? That's why it's important to nip it in the bud so that you don't keep bleeding out money or whatever. But that's the main bulk of the cost, those training hours. I've trained, even HR folks on my team that, sometimes, I necessarily didn't have a pick in hiring them, but maybe they were transferred to my team. And, it takes time to train. And sometimes it's hard to decipher during the initial training phase if they're going to be good or not. But there are flags that you should look at. And even in the pre-hire phase, when we talk about negativity, when they start, right? Even after they start, I know you've experienced a new coworker that all they do is just talk negative about or compare their old company to this company. That's a red flag. We can talk about post-hire red flags too.
Yeah, well, they don't know what they're doing, because at Burger King, this is what we did.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's like it's like a pet peeve of mine, right?
You guys don't know how to really drop fries, because the way you drop fries is with an arch.
Yes. And they always say, I always tell employees, when you start, just check your wording, because when you're saying things like, how do you guys do it? How do we do it? You're part of the team now. Right?
That's actually a red flag in regards to after the post hire. Whenever an employee is referring to the company or business as they or them and not we or us, instant red flag. Instant. Yes. Because they see a distance, there's a separation. I'm not part of the establishment. That's how they do it. They always do this. They do that, not we do this, or that's their policy. No, this is our policy. Whenever easiest red flag, I'm gonna say get them out, but you want to have a conversation with an employee that's doing that.
Yes. And, even going back to some other post-hire red flags, I would say, an employee that just wants to come in and fix everything, right? You know those people, they want to come in and they want to fix everything in their first week because they have all this expert knowledge and what you're doing here is not working, right?
Yeah.
And they don't take the time to sit back and listen, right? A sign of a good employee is someone who has this in their hand, right? Mm-hmm. They have their notes, they're taking notes, they're trying to learn why we do what we do. And I always tell new hires, there's always a reason, right? There's always a reason, whether it's stupid or not. There's a reason why your new job, they're doing what they do. But before you try to propose a change, understand everything, all the pieces of the puzzles before you propose a change. So I wouldn't say that's a red flag, because you do have employees that are very proactive and they're excited and they want to change things, right? But, sometimes you do have to have that conversation and say, you know what, right now, I just need you to learn what we do. And then we can get back to some of these ideas, because once you learn what we do, it might change your thinking, right? Just give it a month. And then, like I said, if you have an employee that, that just started, you're in a training meeting and they're not taking notes, that might be a red flag. Because, they don't know everything, right? I've never started a company that I don't have a notebook. I've never been a new hire, or usually I see great new hires that thrive with the company when they take notes and they really take time to absorb what's happening. But if you have someone that's constantly talking, constantly trying to compare and change everything, that may be a red flag, because, they don't know everything yet.
Awesome. As you were speaking, Raquel, I was, what came to mind was, I won't say the name of the company just out of to protect the ones involved, but I had a coworker that started dating a fellow employee. Mm-hmm. Now, all of the men at the business, all the older seasoned men say, "Hey, bad idea. There are a lot of women in Atlanta. Don't mess with any at the job." It's like, nah, this is my twin flame. This is my soulmate. Started dated. Everything was beautiful. And then the relationship ended. Now, of course, they worked in the same department. And of course, everyone else in the department can pick up on the vibe that, okay, she's distant, he's distant. It got so toxic to the point where it was as simple. His career, now this guy was an engineer, video
Wow.
engineer. He was a video engineer, six figures easily. He was let go simply because she went down to HR and said she felt uncomfortable working around him, and that he made comments to her that were unacceptable. Now, did he probably make those comments? Probably he did. But of course, they were in a relationship. They were intimate. So of course he made comments. But the employer got rid of him because they prefer to get rid of him and cut their losses than to deal with a lawsuit.
Yes.
So what are some of the do's and don'ts for business owners and for managers when it comes to employee manager relationships? Employee manager relations.
Yeah, I definitely say the first thing, and just going back on your example, you should always have policies in place, right? So if you as a business owner, you don't have time to write policies, I would say, look into getting an HR consultant or someone that can come in on a project basis to really talk to you about your philosophy and the policies that you want to implement. I would always say, a lot of business owners, what I've seen that they've done, they'll download a sample handbook or policies off the internet. And that's good for the beginning, but you just don't want to have that on a long-term basis. Your policy should be really personalized to your organization. You always have to have a ground to stand on. And like I said in the beginning, my focus right now at my current job is employment law. I work with legal every day. I've done recruiting and other HR things, but right now I'm focusing on employment law. So I'm glad that you brought that up because that's my thing, right? I'm a employment law nerd, but always having a policy to fall back on in case you're ever brought to have to defend something. So like in that situation, I would always say when it comes to employee relations, you want to have a sort of a grievance or investigation policy, right? So in that situation, how I would handle it, it's sometimes not even good to just go based on hearsay, right? So the company could get in trouble too if they did not interview witnesses and they didn't have some type of proof that that guy actually said what he said to the employee, to the female coworker. He can take a case against the employer if the investigation wasn't done, because now his livelihood has been interrupted just based on hearsay. So having that sort of investigation policy now, when things come to the forefront, whether it be harassment, whether it be theft of customer funds or anything like that, you need to have a step-by-step. Here's what I'm going to do first. First, I'm going to talk to the employee and get their side of it, or maybe talk to the accuser. If someone's coming forward, talk to the employee, see if there are any witnesses, talk to witnesses, see if there's any way, any technology to back up the investigation, documentation, working with IT to find out if there's any controls in place. Always think of, I'm going to have to defend my decision in a court of law, right? And how can I defend this, right? It's easy to say, okay, well, I'll get rid of the employee because I think it would be a potential lawsuit when you think you're doing something right, but then you cause a lawsuit because you thought you had.
That's why we have the HR expert on. You see that? For all the guys, everyone on our Instagram, we have a conversation with Miss Raquel Toussaint. If you want to just look at my beautiful face, you can just stay here. But if you want to see the conversation, you want to go over to Wes Walters on YouTube, Wes Walters on Twitter, on Periscope, and also Wes Walters and Associates on Facebook. All right. Real quick, Raquel, as small businesses scale, and a lot of small businesses owners DM me and they're like, hey, when I started, it was just me and my ride or die. Now that I'm scaling, I'm seeing problems in regards to my ride or die, realizing that I am her manager and we're not just friends. Like within these four walls, I am your manager and I'm not your friend until we leave these small four. What are some of the things that they need to have in place to ensure professionalism remains as a small business scales, and of course trying to avoid silos, and of course employee burnout and nepotism?
Yeah, I think it's, approach it as a transition, right? You never want to approach, now that you're scaling and, as a business owner, you're taking on more responsibility. You have, that right hand or those employees that might have been really close. You don't want just to the next week or the next day have a totally different relationship with them, or I think that it has to be a conscious transition, before you were having small talk with them. You can't go from having small talk to next week just talking about business and, all of that. I think that you kind of have to do it in phases and transition that out. And not just for business owners, but just for managers, right? Because most managers, they get promoted from a team of other coworkers, right? So, and we deal with that all the time. I actually had dealing with a manager right now in our billing department. She was a biller. Now she's a billing manager. So for the business owners that are listening, you're going to have this, right? As you scale and you grow, you're going to have folks that are great performers that you're going to promote, but they were coworkers. So I think investing in them as a leader, as far as giving them new manager training, there's actually, even on LinkedIn has a great portal, LinkedIn Learning, and I think it's only maybe about $50 a month. A lot of people don't know about that.
I am an avid, so a little history. Before it was LinkedIn purchased lynda.com.
Okay.
Yeah. I've had a lynda.com account probably 15 years.
Yeah, there's a training on LinkedIn Learning right now that we give to our new managers on how to transition from a coworker to a manager. It's a great training. I believe it's about an hour, and it goes through that transition and things that, okay, now you can't be texting your employees like you were before. What are some appropriate conversations to have? But yes, investing in your new leaders and just investing in yourself as a business owner, I think it's good for your growth and all of that. But when it comes to burnout, as you grow, great if you have the funds to hire more resources to help your team, right? But realizing when you need those resources is great. In HR, I've been an HR business partner as well. And when you say an HR business partner, those are folks that really learn the business side of it as far as the operations to implement HR principles. And we understand that it's not an easy just hire somebody else, because the business might not have the funds right now. You're in that transition stage where you just can't hire a full-time person, right? Yeah. But you might want to bring in some temp help to help with burnout. You might want to always look at, if you have 3 employees, right, you're that small, you always want to reevaluate what everyone's doing to make sure responsibilities are fair across the board and that employees are really focusing on what they're really good at, instead of things. And everyone has things that they have to do, but you want to be sure that you're tailoring their responsibilities to what they're really good at so that they're not burned out. Until you can afford to hire more people, right? So it's a very tricky thing, because not everyone can just say, let's just hire more people. We hear that all the time. We need more people, but if you're a true business partner and it's not the easiest thing to say, just hire people.
Yeah. Yeah, real quick now, what are some of the software applications that small businesses can implement as they're scaling to help with their HR process? Is there any specific that you would recommend?
Yeah, so right now most organizations that I've been with have always had an HRIS system, right? An HR system. But if you are very, very small, you might not start out with that. You might start out with something like QuickBooks or whatever, but that's really small. Mm-hmm. Thinking about right now, I use Workday, and that's more from medium to large size organization. But when we talk about small business, there are a lot of softwares out there like Paylocity, Paychex. ADP has some software for small businesses, and you want to keep in mind when they're selling you these things, make sure you're getting the small business package, because you'll have that ADP rep that comes out and tries to sell you the large business package and have you spend all this money for bells and whistles that you don't need.
Exactly.
So most companies, and I think even Workday now, if you've ever heard of Workday, that's the new technology for like managing employee. We can manage payroll in there. You can manage expense reimbursements and performance reviews, everything in one system. So, and not just Workday, Paychex, Paylocity, all of those companies have a lot of all-in-one. So if you buy the package, you can manage employee performance reviews, on the spot things, taking notes. You can upload your employee files and all of that. But I would say any software that you get, if you're a small business owner, make sure that they're not selling you more than you need. Because you'll have a lot of reps that give you everything, all the bells and whistles, and then you don't even use it. A waste of money.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this one last question, Raquel. If that time presents itself, when it is time to, when you realize that it's just not there's no spiritual cohesiveness between the brand or the business and this employee, and it's probably best to stop the bleeding. It starts at $4,100, and it's growing exponentially. Stop the bleeding. What's the proper way to part ways and to allow this employee to go fly and spread their wings at another establishment?
The best way is to do it before they hit their 90 days for many reasons, right? So, of course, it affects morale. I also manage the unemployment function at my current organization for unemployment reasons too, right? Because usually the state looks at, how long they've worked for you. And if you don't want your unemployment account to be hit, that's a lot of money at the end of the year if your insurance goes up because you're being hit with unemployment fees. So that 90-day window is really good for unemployment reasons. And then also, I would say have a check-in even within the 90-day, every 30 days, have a sit down. That's something that we implement in our company, where managers actually sit down with their employees at the end of every 30 days and if you need to have that sit down more frequently, I always say personalize the experience. If you're seeing red flags, you might have to have a weekly meeting with your new employee, right? And it might not be a bad thing. It might just be a 30-minute check-in on Fridays, just to redirect some maybe potential bad behaviors. But I would say when you are come to the point where you have to let someone go, a new employee, the first thing is you don't want it to be a surprise. And not just for new employees, for any employees, letting someone go should never be a surprise. They should have had multiple conversations with you, letting them know that this is not working out. I facilitate conversations with managers, letting their employees know that I've said it, your job is in jeopardy. Yeah. Sometimes you have to be that direct, right? And to let them know it's that serious. Yeah. But they should never be surprised on the way out. They should have some control in the process as well, because, they have left a job, maybe, they probably resigned, and having those conversations with them leading up to the termination, it gives them some control, right? So if they want to start applying for other jobs, if they want to resign, because having an employee resign, that's an HR gem. It's easier to have them resign, right? But so if you've had those conversations with them, and they might say, you know what, I'm not cutting it. I'm just going to go ahead and resign. And for me, I'm like, oh, okay, that works out way better. Yeah.
You hear the trumpets from heaven, like, please sign here.
Yeah, but you never know. They'll never resign if they don't know that they're doing a bad job, right? Yeah. But it starts with a progression, right? So if you start to see red flags, you want to start off soft. You want to start off with, okay, you're doing great on this, but this is where I need you to improve. You're seeing more red flags and they're not cutting it. The conversation needs to get a little bit more serious, as you go on. But I would say a common thing that I've seen business owners and managers do is just let it ride, right? And they don't want to confront the problem. It's okay to be direct with them. And that's always the defense. I mean, I've been in multiple cases in court for employees suing for wrongful termination and things like that. So, I live in the state of Georgia, where it's a at-will state, but I manage employees across multiple states. Not all states are at-will states. So there has to be, in some states, legally some type of process where you're talking to them. And when they leave, even if you're brought to a case or even unemployment, they're going to ask you, how would the employee have known if their job was in jeopardy? You have to have an answer. In certain states, you have to have an answer because it can cost you a lot of money. So, there it is. I mean, I really feel like having those conversations, not surprising the employee and letting them have some control in the process, because what they're going to do, if they don't, they're going to leave disgruntled and they're going to tell your customers about you, whether that be on Facebook, LinkedIn, or what's the other one that does reviews? Glassdoor.com. They're going to leave. And a lot of, believe it or not, a lot of customers look at things like that. Sometimes I do. And maybe it's just the HR person in me. I go on
I do too. I'm always like, okay, how do they treat the people on the inside?
Yeah. Yep. And most of those Glassdoor reviews are people that have left. Right. I mean, a lot of people, they're employees currently that say things, but a lot of them have left. But it just depends on how you treat that person on the way out. And I know you're mad, and I know you're like, oh, this person lied to me. They're not as good as they say they were. But sometimes you just have to suck it up, because they might affect your customer service and what the public views. And I'll wrap it up, but I do have one story to tell about that, because I worked for a company that actually, we had some former employees that got together and they didn't feel like their terminations were fair or they were treated with respect on the way out. They actually went to the Washington Post and they got together. Yes. One of the employees was kind of the ringleader. And this was a pretty big organization. And we were about to acquire another company right when this article came out in the Washington Post about the practices at the time that the company had, how they were unfairly terminated, how, we didn't do background checks up to par. I mean, a lot of lies were in there as well. But they were mad, right? To go to the Washington Post.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that we were acquiring another company, we lost that deal. And it might not have been solely because of the article, but it had a lot to do with it. I mean, the Washington Post.
Yeah. So
could you imagine the effect on the customers or the patients that were thinking to come on board with the company, seeing that? And even if there were lies, it happened because they felt disgruntled on the way out. They had a chip on their shoulder. So it might be an extreme example, right?
No, it's not.
But the Washington Post can be the local paper in the town, right? So any employee can go to the news.
It's not an over-exaggeration. I always tell managers to address customers' complaints immediately, right away. Immediately, because if you let it linger and that customer resorts to social media, and then now you're like, oh, it's a big problem, let me fix it. Even after you fixed it, that review stays there. And a lot more reviews need to come down before it pushes it down. So if you can nip it in the bud quick before it gets to a review, when it gets to a review, even if you gave them the world after the review, the review is already there. It's already there. So, I always like to say, hey, nip it in the bud quickly. If you can address it immediately, not just address it, but give them a concession. Hey, this is not normally how we do things. Please come back. Let's make it right to you. If you're just tuning in, we're here with Raquel Toussaint, HR manager and expert, dropping gems as always. This is awesome TV, and everything that she's given us is pretty awesome. Raquel, I so much appreciate this interview, and we're going to do something called a rapid fire right quick before you go. Something just to catch you off your toes to see who Miss Raquel really is. All right. So grits or cream and wheat?
Cream of wheat. I love grits, but cream of wheat is a favorite. My favorite.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Condo in Miami or condo in Seattle? Don't sleep in Seattle now.
Miami. Seattle rains too much.
Hotel or Airbnb?
Hotel.
Taxi or Uber?
Uber.
Stay up late or get up early?
Get up early. That's why I'm here.
Raquel, listen, thank you so much. Listen, this was awesome. The reason you were here is because, anyone who's watching, you always get people that are smarter than you. If you realize every single guest that's on this show is smarter than Wes. I bring people on who know things that I don't know. I don't know anything about HR. That's why we have Raquel. Raquel, this was beautiful. This gave the viewers a lot of insight that I couldn't give them. I want to have you back at least once a quarter, 4 times a year. I need you to make a commitment 4 times a year in 2021. You're going to be on the show. So between now and March, I need you to be on here between now and March, January and March, and every quarter, giving the viewers what they need in regards to hire, because I know a lot of business owners that are scaling and making the wrong decisions can cost them dearly in court and financially. So
absolutely. I would love to. And we can go more into hiring. We can go more into just dealing with employee issues. So if you're, a business manager and owner watching this, or even watching the replay, if there's something that you want to dive more into, just leave it in the comments, and, I'll be glad to come back so we can, look into some of those things.
Awesome. Where can the viewers find you, Raquel? Because I know you also have a podcast, correct? Or a YouTube
channel?
Yeah,
I actually have a YouTube channel, and it's just simply my name. I don't have any, catchphrases or anything. It's just simply Raquel Toussaint. On YouTube, or you can go to my website, raqueltoussaint.com. But right now I'm focusing on those broadcasts on YouTube and just really helping, business owners and managers and even HR professionals really understand some of the things that I've learned, and just talk about experiences, right? I think Wes always says it the best, really sharing those stories. It helps, because everyone has a story that they can learn from, or share so someone can learn. But definitely my website, Raquel Toussaint, and just check out my YouTube channel.
Awesome. All right, Raquel, one last thing. What's that one thing you want to leave the viewers with, whether it's concerning customer experience, concerning HR, social commentary? What's that one thing you want to leave them with?
I would say more so concerning the employee, since we're talking about onboarding and that initial experience for the employee. Going back to what I said at the beginning, that first morning, always spend time really setting the stage for your culture at your company. Always let them know what the mission statement is, your values, and how serious you are as a business owner, right? You always have to set the stage. You always want to let them know the back end, the values of you, your values, your expectations. So leaving that with you guys, set the stage from the very beginning.
There you have it, Miss Raquel Toussaint. At Raquel Toussaint on YouTube and RaquelToussaint.com. Raquel, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. Can't wait to see you in for Q1 next year. And for all the viewers, if you need help with anything that you saw today, whether from myself or Raquel, shoot her a DM, shoot me a DM, and we can help you implement any of the things that we covered. If you are watching the replay, obviously, please type #replay and let us know what you learned from it and what you're going to implement at the speed of now with your team, making you, your team, and your business better. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. And we are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern, here at Wes Walters and Associates on Facebook. Wes Walters on YouTube, Wes Walters on Instagram, and of course, Wes Walters on Twitter. It was a pleasure, Raquel. You have a great day. All right.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.